What happened was.
Hey friends, it's so nice to see you. It's today, the time is now. You are here and the weather is outside your window.
Hey there, and happy Halloween week! Zachary James here as the monster at the Ogunquit Playhouse in our final week of performances. And today's guest on What Happened Was is young Frankenstein himself, John Bolton, star of stage and screen. Hi!
Hi, Zachary. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. Long time no see.
Long time. This is really funny because we're 20 yards away from each other in different rooms in company housing at Ogunquit Playhouse.
Yours looks nicer than mine right now.
No way. So I could wave to you across to your window, but we're meeting on Zoom because we have a 2-show day today.
We do.
Yeah. So we met just 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change. Sure.
Yeah. And you're my daddy, Dr. Frankenstein.
And you are the tallest son I will ever have.
Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure to share the stage with you. And I, of course, first saw you in the tour of Hello, Dolly in Philadelphia.
Gosh,
yeah.
With our friend Carolee Carmelo.
Carolee, yeah. And you were just magnificent. And I love that production.
Thank you. I did too. It was a great way to head into COVID, if you know.
Yes.
Such a positive, well-written, well-staged, beautiful show. I had no idea the gift it was until COVID started. It was like, well, I just had the most amazing experience. I can coast for a while.
Yeah. I feel like that's often the way, though, with the gigs we have. It's sometimes you look back and think, wow, that was the best. And yeah, it's hard sometimes.
And this was a lot of fun. I love every second of our crazy business on stage.
I love it.
The audience seems to as well, fortunately.
Yeah, it's been great. And very unique circumstances in that we're in this enormous tent sort of outdoors, and but it's like the Broadway production of Young Frankenstein in a tent in Maine.
It's huge. The tent like undersells it. It's like the hugest tent you've ever seen, most brilliantly designed tent you've ever seen. Yeah, it's like performing in the Big Top circus.
No, it's totally, it's Cirque du Soleil style. It's very much amazing. Yeah, it's
a huge stage. Huge stage.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun.
So much fun. And we've been so lucky to be pretty much sold out and have these enormous crowds who are socially distanced and enjoying hot apple cider while they watch us. And they're cuddled up in blankets. It's really cute.
It is so much fun. It's a unique and wonderful experience. They made Ogunquit Playhouse, kudos to them. They made the most of an extremely challenging situation, and audiences are loving every second. And fortunately, so are we.
Yeah. And of course, you did this show here in the Playhouse itself 8 years ago?
I did. 8 years ago, 2013.
Wow.
And in fact, I'd read they were doing it again. I was like, well, I'm probably too old to play anybody with the word title. And then out of nowhere, they just called me and said, do you want to do it again? I was like,
I love that.
It's so much fun. And I've done a little television since COVID, but this is my first 8 shows a week.
Wow.
Break a sweat. Situation. And what a way to come back. It's sort of like visiting an old friend.
Yeah.
It's such a fun role and a fun piece that everyone loved. The audience, they come with obviously the knowledge of the film and appreciation for that very mature kind of humor.
Very mature. Very sophisticated.
Very classy.
Yeah.
Very classy.
It's been so fun to be around laughter, though. It's been such a gift.
Right. Absolutely. And what a gift. Like you said, what a gift.
Yeah. And also the laughter we shared in the rehearsal room when we were rehearsing in New York, that was just a riot. And it's always
between you and Sally Struthers, literally picking us up and carrying us around.
Yeah. It's funny though, I'm sure you've experienced this many, many times in your career when you're doing a comedy and you're in the rehearsal room and some things get huge laughs from the company and rehearsal room that don't get laughs from an audience. And there's always that thing, and it shows how important previews are and why we do previews on Broadway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely some really large rehearsal room laughs where I thought, I'm slaying it. And then, of course, some of those were just crickets for the audience. But
Well,
then the audience laughs at a lot of things that we didn't know were funny.
yeah, yeah.
Or we didn't think were knee slappers necessarily.
Right, right.
And so it's a nice mix.
Yeah, I listen every day to David, who's so wonderful. And the biggest laugh comes when he says it cost me an arm and a leg. And of course, the joke is he has a wood arm and a tin leg. And I don't think anyone laughed at rehearsal. And it's one of the biggest laughs
In the entire show.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm doing a quick change at that moment. And my dresser, Allie, that is her favorite joke in the entire show. And I set her up by saying the cue line every night. And then along with the brilliant David, she says the punchline every night while we are frantically changing clothes.
Right,
so,
right.
That's how I appreciated that joke.
And I'm. This is creepy, but I'm watching your quick change while I lay on a gurney, waiting for you to push my dead body on. So,
and all of what you just said is true and weird. And if it was any other profession, we could write each other up for that.
Yeah, and we get paid for this.
Yeah. And we get paid for this.
It's magnificent.
So
now you've done 9 Broadway shows.
9 that opened. Yeah.
There
were 2 that the marquees were up in 2 different cases, and we did not come in, for whatever reason. One of them perhaps wisely, and the other one was quite a heartbreaker.
Wow.
Paper Moon was the name of the musical, based on the Ryan O'Neal, Tatum O'Neal film. We did it at Paper Mill Playhouse to great acclaim, and it was terrific. It was going to be my Broadway debut.
Oh my goodness!
Terrific cast, amazing cast. I mean, Google it, viewers, and see the amazing cast that was. And yeah, right, like 2 days before we were to start rehearsals, we all got phone calls and sorry, it's not going to happen. And literally, our marquee was up, like on the theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, so it was a genuine heartbreaker. But
yeah, of course.
Within a month, I was in that theater anyway, hosting the American Printed Fabrics Council Industrial on what was to be our opening night. I was in the ballroom of the Marquee Theater. It was going to be the Marquee, and hosting the American Printed Fabrics Council Industrial.
What?
Because, boy got to eat. So there was that. But then that theater became available because we didn't come in, and Damn Yankees had been a big hit at the Old Globe, and all of a sudden our theater was available, so they grabbed our theater. And I wound up being a replacement in that show a few months into their run. So,
and that was your Broadway debut, Damn Yankees.
And that was,
yeah,
I was a replacement, and I learned the show in like 4 days in a separate rehearsal studio with just the dance captain and the music director, who were amazing, Cynthia Onrubia and David Chase, who were both legends at this point. And then I was thrown into a put-in where I'm the only one in costume, and the rest of the cast is friendly, but going through the motions of it because they're called in on a Friday.
Right.
And then I went on, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into the show. And to this day, it is, I think, some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. Just being one of the guys up there,
Yeah.
It was a great cast. Victor Garber, B.B. Newworth, Charlotte D'Amboise came in. Jerry Lewis came in to replace Victor. So that was a whole different world and a wonderful world in itself. So yeah, that show was a blast.
Wow. And so I also noticed, and I didn't know this, but I was doing some research on you. You've done 3 recurring roles on daytime television on soap operas?
On soap operas, yeah. This was a while ago when soap operas shot in New York City.
Yeah.
I played a doctor on Guiding Light, as needed.
Yes.
And I was Lucinda's possibly gay assistant on.
Was that your choice? Did you played that up?
It was sort of in the writing, and I would like to think I didn't just flame it up there, but there was one episode where she was rewarding me for getting dirt on one of her nemesis, and she said perhaps ball game tickets, and my character had to say, well, I prefer opera tickets.
Yes.
So she was like, okay, then there you go. And
wonderful.
So I sort of took that cue for the rest of my episodes to well, let's just say it fleshed it out a little bit. And then I was the DA of Pine, what's it called? Pine Valley. Oh my God, it's been so long. On All My Children. and lost every case I had because I'm always prosecuting Erica Kane. And of course, she always never goes to jail because she's perfect
Right.
and Erica Kane. And that was a fun one. And still friends with some of the cast of that show to this day.
Oh, that's so cool. And also on one of my very favorite shows ever, Madam Secretary.
Oh, yeah.
I
I
love
was
that
your
show.
attorney general
Yes.
for a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
And Tay Leone was just the greatest. Great directors on that show. We had Eric Stoltz was one of the main directors on that. Tim Daly, great actor.
Yeah.
And of course, Keith Carradine. Most of my scenes were with him, as who played the president.
Right.
And one of the best actors I've ever worked with, Jelko Ivanek, who played Russell, was the character's name. Every time I was next to him, it was like a masterclass.
Yeah.
So I was just grateful to be there. Very different kind of acting. And I'm thrilled to get to do more TV. When I first moved to the city, there was a bit of a snobbery against musical theater actors and television.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, we want real actors. And
Wow.
to some extent that was valid because I think they thought I was going to come on and hacha,
Sure.
and
Sure.
it's as you know, an entirely different beast,
So
stage
different.
acting and camera acting. And I'm grateful that some casting directors continued to call me in until I started booking pretty regularly. And and now and it's so different. The stuff I do on television, they have no idea I'm funny, I don't think, because it's always very serious.
Sure.
The hour-long dramas that shoot in New York, and
Right.
which I'm so grateful for. Residuals are a lovely thing, and
Yeah.
were a great part of why I was able to eat during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very different world. And Madam Secretary particularly used so many Broadway actors and so many musical theater actors, which was really cool to see.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark Sachs, who keeps half of Broadway, tries to keep all of Broadway working. Just a wonderful believer in us as versatile performers, as opposed to just, ha-cha-cha.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because in LA, if you're coming from Broadway, you're considered a very serious actor, even if it is musical theater, and so it's funny that has really.
One time I met with an agent in LA. We were doing curtains out at the Amundsen. I figured, well, I might as well do the obligatory meet with an LA agent situation. It did not go well, but on my part, I was like, I don't want to work with you. But he literally said, so listen, tell me, you do live work, yeah? I was like, live work? Yeah. You mean Broadway shows? He's like, yeah, like live work. It's weird. How does that work? Like, there's sort of very little concept of what goes into that. And
well, it's its own beast. And as you know, a lot of TV people can't hack that. It's a very different animal.
Very true. And to bring it to the opera world, I had the great good fortune to work with San Francisco Opera on their Zambello production of Showboat, which I know Dallas Opera has done since I did it. But it was different because there were four of us, four musical comedy types in this beautiful classic that has operatic feel to it in many ways. I love how they're trying to make Showboat, Sweeney Todd, some of the musicals that are
night music
them into opera seasons. I do think they lend themselves. But I remember showing up there, like, you have to have everything learned. Okay.
Yes.
And once during a rehearsal, we were doing some choreography rehearsal. I played Frank, who's a sort of a dancer in the show. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing that harmony. What's my harmony there? Just plunk out that one measure. And everything stopped. And they said, let's take a break. And the head of the whole thing came up to me and said, we understand a rehearsal has been requested. And I said, I'm sorry, I was just trying to learn the choreography, and the harmony just escaped me. And he was at the piano, and I just wanted him to sort of just do the one measure of harmony. And they're like, no, you were supposed to come knowing everything. I was like, well, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. They weren't unkind about it. They were just actually trying to be very professional about it. But it was a whole different world. And let me tell you, the four of us musical comedy types, Harriet Harris, Bill Irwin, Kirsten Wyatt, and myself, came away with such an appreciation of the sheer power behind these spectacular trained voices that are just some of the best in the world. And they, I think, came away with an appreciation of the fact that we do it 8 times a week. And they often would look at us and go, how do you do that? So many times a week and not blow your voice out or pull a hamstring or whatever. So we all, well, it turned out to be a very mutual admiration society, and it's an experience I'm extremely grateful for.
That's really beautiful. Well, something I didn't know about you that you shared, which I think is so cool, is you studied journalism. You did not study theater. And
no,
so you're from a small town in upstate New York, the birthplace of Jell-O, and you studied
Leroy, New York, birthplace of Jell-O.
Yeah.
Home to the Jell-O Museum.
So how did this happen that you became this Broadway star from
oh God,
your journalism degree?
I have my BA in journalism, which I'm glad I have. Something in the pocket, it's there. Sure. But during college, there are a lot of community theater in Rochester and some professional theater in Rochester. Many of the companies are still there 30 years later. And there were some wonderful people who ran those organizations or were directors or choreographers and fellow actors who I was able to learn from. And it just sort of gave me the confidence to think, oh, I'm going to drive to New York and audition for summer stock and just see what happens. Why not? Just try it. And I did. And I booked some stuff, and that led to working with directors who recommended me for this or hired me for that. And then that other actor recommended me to do this. And it all sort of wound up springing from that one decision to go audition for summer stock. All of a sudden, it's 30 years later. But it went from having my toe in the water to foot in the water to ankle in the water to all of a sudden, here I am.
Right.
Immersed, drowning happily.
And such a great example that you don't need to go get a degree in this necessarily, and that as a lot of the real training comes from actually doing it if you get so lucky.
I totally agree. And something that I've learned is a lot of the college professors today are spectacular and amazing, and listen to them and listen to every word they say, they're right. But a lot of them are so out of touch with what is currently happening in New York, particularly the aspects of the business itself. Yes. I'm not talking about purely a performance standpoint. And I think that that any good musical theater program or any good acting program should involve multiple classes on the business of show business, because it is something that I'm seeing young people come to the city, no clue about the business of it. And it is indeed a business. It's more than just,
Absolutely. Sparkle. And not to mention the monumental shift in the digital age. When I moved to New York, I was getting a backstage newspaper at the bodega, and everything changed.
It sure did. And it makes things a lot easier, I think,
for sure,
for people. So there's sort of no excuse if you can't figure it out now. But I was born in the 60s, so sometimes figuring out the Zoom stuff, at first. It was a bit of a challenge, and the self-tapes I sort of did, because now self-tapes, for those who don't know, we have to submit ourselves because you don't go into the studio or anymore, and they send you the scenes and you do it, and you try to make it not look like you're in company housing, Ogunquit, Maine, when you submit to them. And but that's something I've since embraced, because I've learned to appreciate the fact that it allows me some control over what I submit. Like if I blow it, it's not just, well, thank you so much, get out. It's, I can do another take.
Exactly.
I'm in control of what I send to them. So
I feel like I'm a much better actor after all the self-tape experience this past year, because I have to watch myself, and I have to
That's the hardest part for me is picking the take that was the good one.
But you can't ignore, any bad habits or any tics or anything. It's like, okay, I have to see that and adjust and be better. And that's kind of cool.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you some silly questions?
Please do. That's my favorite part.
All right. Zodiac sign.
Capricorn.
Favorite ice cream.
Black raspberry. It's a tie. Black raspberry and a sugar cone, or chocolate marshmallow.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee, and lots of it.
Yes. Beach or mountain?
Oh gosh. If I had to pick, beach.
That's a good answer. Yeah. Dream vacation spot?
New England in the summer. So that's why I'm liking being here, although it's fall, but it's beautiful. Oh gosh, no, wait, abort that, because I've already done that a million times. Greece.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I've never been. I would love to. I've been all over the world. I've never been to Greece. Would love to go.
I agree. Ever since Talented Mr. Ripley, I'm like, must go there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, first opera you ever saw.
I saw a television production of Hansel and Gretel by the Canadian Broadcasting Company, starring Maureen Forrester as the witch, when I was in about third grade.
Wow.
And I loved it.
Oh,
It
wow.
just changed my life. I had a children's record. I still have the exit vinyl of a Disney version of Hansel and Gretel with narration and dialogue, but it used a few of the Humperdinck songs.
Oh, cool.
And to see it fleshed out like that, and hear that glorious music, it's still to this day one of my favorite operas. I love the Wagnerian feel of all the orchestrations in particular. I love a good scary female witch. Otherwise it's too campy, and who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want that scary, gorgeous mezzo, dark mezzo female witch. But in terms of a live opera, at the Met early in my New York sojourn, it was Carmen, which is another all-time favorite. I like the ones with the big tunes. Faust,
Sure,
Carmen. Sure. I love me a tune.
Carmen has them all.
Carmen has them all. And do you know that the 1976 film The Bad News Bears uses all the entire score of Carmen as background music and theme music? And until I was probably well into my 20s, I thought that music was the themes from The Bad News Bears.
Wow.
Because I didn't know. I hadn't seen it.
Right.
No one ever said, P.S. that's Carmen.
Right.
I just thought it was this great, thrilling, as the Bears are coming up in the pennant rankings. I thought all that. So to combine that with this amazing, the story of Carmen, I love it on two dimensions: the Bad News Bears dimension and the fact for what it is, this spectacular, beautiful opera from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the most used score in film and television, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And it's just everywhere.
I would imagine.
Yeah, and funny.
But I love Mozart. I love Don Giovanni.
Yeah.
And I love having different recordings of the operas I love. I like to hear different recordings of them, to hear how different singers do it, much like you like to hear how different illustrators or painters illustrate a certain classic that you're fond of. Sure. It's fun to hear different approaches to the material, to the arias. I just love it.
Absolutely. What was the first Broadway musical you saw?
Annie. And I was the same age as the kids in the show. And I wrote to the director, Martin Charnin, and said, you should have boy, because there's only girl orphans in the show. And I said, you should have boy orphans in the show.
And cast me.
And cast me, please. And then that same weekend, we saw Annie and the Wiz.
Oh, wow.
And it was just magic. And I was basically like a sixth grader, from upstate New York, coming to New York. I thought everybody stayed at the Waldorf. We would stay at the Waldorf for my dad's annual banking trips, 2 nights, whatever. And we would see a couple of the shows every year. But that first year was Annie and the Wiz, and I'll never forget it. And to this day, I've never worked in used to be called the Alvin Theater. It's now called the Neil Simon, where Annie was. I would love to do a show in the theater where I saw my first Broadway show.
I'm sure you will. Yeah. What would that kid, if you went back in time and said to that kid, like, hey, you're going to do 9 Broadway shows, what would he believe it?
I hope he would say, well, I hope you do 10. People always say, what's your dream role? And I say, the next one.
Yes.
Whatever that is. I always knew I'd live in New York. From that first trip to New York, I thought, I'm going to live here. And I didn't know I would be a performer, but I knew that I wanted to be involved with the industry in some way. Yeah. And I think it was pretty cool, but I would also say, well, of course.
Sure. I love that. All right, here's a toughie. And it's the last question. What is the meaning of life?
A cuddly dog. The meaning of life. The meaning of life is having no regrets, maybe. Knowing that you did your best. The meaning of life is owing it to yourself to always do your best.
Yeah. That's kind of the meaning of auditions and performance also,
Yeah. And just, you do your best in friendships and relationships and
Yeah.
home decor and in
Home
personal
decor.
sanitary habits.
Yes.
I wanted to talk briefly. We share one of my favorite theaters, the Lunt Fontaine.
Yes. Yeah.
I've done 2 shows there, and I know
What
you
shows?
spent a long time there with
What shows?
A Christmas Story, the musicale,
Yes.
where I got to play the dad and be surrounded by leg lamps. So much fun. And Titanic. We did 2 years of Titanic there.
Wow.
97, 99.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I know that there's something sort of special about that theater, that grungy, old, moldy theater. I just think there's
Very
some good
special.
juju there.
Yeah, it's very special. Very odd. I love how it's right in the heart of Times Square. I love walking out and just being right there.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it feels like Broadway. I'm
Absolutely.
on Broadway. Yeah, very, very special.
And so much history there. And
yeah. Do you remember what dressing room you had?
Yeah, for Titanic, I was in, I don't know the number of it, but it's like up 3 flights and then it's like a big room on the right. That's all I know.
Yes.
And then for A Christmas Story, Erin Dilly and I shared the star floor. So she being the lady and amazing. She had the huge thing, and I had the other 2 rooms on that floor, which we made one my like sitting room and the other my like dressing room.
Yes, I know exactly those rooms. Yeah.
But she very graciously allowed me to use her shower nightly.
Oh.
And we would close that place. There was a great doorman there, and he would let us stay literally till 3:30, 4 in the morning, as long as we kept tipping.
Wow.
And our friends would come up, and we would just have wine all night long and just pretend we were movie stars in those beautiful dressing rooms.
Oh, there's nothing like having a dressing room on Broadway, and you're like, oh, this is my studio apartment in Times Square. You know?
Yeah. I like getting to decorate it, or you get
love
to, hey, you tell them what color you want,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever. It's
Yeah.
especially if you know the show's going to run a while.
Yes.
Then they'll come to you and say, okay, you're going to be here for a year. So
Yeah.
what do you want? So
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Just moving in and having your own little studio apartment in the middle of Times Square.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
And it never gets old, and I never stop being appreciative. I am so grateful every single time I've gotten to walk through, in or out a stage door. You just count yourself so lucky. Look what we're part of. This amazing, wonderful thing that we get to do.
Yeah.
So we are so lucky.
It's been such a special experience to be in this show with all of you, because it's been 10 years since I've done a Broadway show, and I've primarily been doing opera. So this is my first time in a company of actors in 10 years. And it's a very different beast, as you know, and it's just been very special to have this experience with all of you and to do 8 shows again. 8 a week. It's been really cool. I didn't know if I could do it, but we're pulling it off.
I was a little nervous as well, because the show, as you know, is so physical that
for you especially, you never leave stage. You're
you too. You have to pick me up,
come
throw
on.
me around.
I have all act 1 off. It's easy.
Oh my God. Well, I wish everyone watching could see you in this, because you are so brilliant, and you are so hilarious as the monster, but you also bring, like, we care about him. Do you know, we kind of go, oh, with the monster. We want him to be happy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a treat.
The loot.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have a show in like 2 hours, so I'm going to let you go, but thanks for coming on. What happened was, is this your Dallas Opera debut?
This is my Dallas Opera debut.
Heck yeah.
Thank you for having me. They invited me to do that production of Showboat, but I was doing a run in New York at the time, and I really wanted to come because it was so fun to do, and I'd do anything for Francesca. I'd follow her anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
a mighty force.
So hello, Dallas. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you at the theater.
In a few short minutes.
Yes.
I got a monster in my closet. Someone's underneath my bed. The wind's knocking at my window. I kill it, but it's already dead. It waits till the midnight hour to come to torture me for the wrong I've done. It just sits there and stares at me, and it won't let me get any sleep. I got a monster in my closet. Someone's underneath my bed.
lives knocking at my window. I'd kill it, but it's already dead. At first I was scared when I looked at his eyes, but now that I know him, I'm not that surprised. I'm just waiting on the sun to rise. Oh, I wish that old sun would rise. I got a monster in my closet. Someone's underneath my bed. The winds are knocking at my window. I'd kill it, but it's already dead. I used to wonder why he looked so familiar. Then I realized it was a mirror. And now it's plain to see the whole time the monster was me. Well, there's a monster in my closet. Someone's underneath my bed. The winds are knocking at my window. I kill it, but it's already dead. I'm the living dead.
That's all for today's episode. Puppies and rainbows till we meet again.